Well, here's a quick update on the new brakes and rear end installation after about 420 miles on it. It's pretty good. The brakes are great. Got rid of all of the problems I was having and the shuddering and the terrible actuation and the sticking and the being snatchy when it was wet, and those drums, didn't matter what I did, they were just bad. Been checking the temperature every day when I get to work and back, when it isn't raining, and it's highest I see right now is about 156 Fahrenheit right on the pinion bearing at the housing, and then about 148, 145, 148 on the back of the back cover. Everything else is 120 or less. It's been doing good. Nothing's going spiky, nothing is increasing. It's all staying about the same, so I'm pretty happy with that. It does make a little bit of notable noise. It's got a little bit of a howl to it, but not bad, more like a whistle than anything. And if I had shitty tires on it that made a lot of noise, you'd never even hear it, but I go with quiet tires so you can hear everything. Couple of notes on the way I did it versus the way it probably should be done. Having the spare truck was handy. It would have been handier if it was in good shape, because I had to rebuild this with a mix match set of gears. If I were able to find a fairly well known or a rear end with low mileage that didn't have an abuse problem, you don't have to do the rebuild. You maybe do an oil change, check your seals, and it's a lot cheaper. It saves you about $100 worth of bearings and a day's worth of work to get all that done. Then it just bolts right in, and you change your lines and you hook up your emergency braking to drive off. So that's something I would recommend if you're going to try to do something like this for yourself. Another thing that we noticed, you notice I don't have my center caps on the wheels in the back, is at some point, and I think from my research it was about the 99 model year, Ford went from a 12 millimeter stud to a 14 millimeter stud. So the lug nuts from the old axle don't fit this one, and so I had to use some lug nuts from the junk truck, and all those were pretty well beat up. So I've got 5 halfway decent ones on this side, and then 5 other ones on this side that were all chewed up, so I cut the outer housings off of them so I could actually get a socket on them. But right now I've got 3 different size lug nuts on this thing, which isn't really good if anything happens and I have to change a tire. I have ordered a set of the factory style 14 millimeter lug nuts, and when they come on, I think they will actually allow me to install the original hubcaps or center caps. We will see, because the center caps clip onto the lug nuts on these trucks. But that's small potatoes. I mean, the lug nuts was like 20 bucks to get the right set. And if you had different wheels where that didn't matter, then, you know, all you got to do is make sure you have enough wrenches in your toolbox or whatever in the truck to be able to change them if you have a problem, because everything else is the same. But, you know, looking through here, I don't know if we can see anything, but the disc is cleaned up pretty well. It's not great, but again, it's rear brakes. They're not totally important. They just don't need to act up. Emergency brake, I have tested it. It does seem to work. It does seem to release. Everything looks good on that. You can see we've got no leaks, you know, that I've noticed. No extra heat. Oh, she's a little warm, but not bad. So she'll be all right. Right now, I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, the other thing I noticed is on my 97, as you can see, the shocks are both in the back. And on the 03, there was one on the passenger side that was in the front. Luckily, the housing has spots for both. So the 2003 housing bolted right in. I didn't have to get creative with how that rear shock was mounted, because there are no provisions to put the shock in the front on this truck. From a brake line perspective, everything's working well. All the lines worked. I've got no leaks. All of the clips went back. I did exchange the ABS sensor with the one from my truck originally because I knew that one was working and not throwing a code. That is still functioning. The ABS does work, and everything else looks good. I've already kind of explained the funky caliper I have over here, where I've got a right side caliper on the left so you can't bleed it in place. But again, I was able to remove it, flip it upside down, and bleed it off the truck, and it's been fine. The brake pedal is still very, very solid, very good. I'm very happy with this. As long as my gear set stays happy and my bearings stay happy, I'll stay happy. One last little thing that I don't think matters too much, but it probably does make a little bit of a difference, is, as I said, I did go with the master cylinder from the 03 because it is notably bigger in diameter on the piston. That's something that you should consider if you're doing this. Grab that from the truck that you're getting parts from, or just go to the parts store and get yourself one. I don't think they're going to be terribly expensive, 30, 40, 50 bucks maybe max. And that's a fairly easy job. The other thing I have is I believe this is a level. The plugs don't match between the 97 and the 03. And I have to go through and figure out if this is just a switch in here, a float switch, that when it drops down, it completes this circuit. If that's the case, because the other one I believe is also 2-wire, if that's the case, I'll go nip the wire off the other truck, tie it in here, plug it in, and then that'll take care of it. But going forward, I'm probably just going to mark 03 on some of the parts that are, to remind myself, and maybe anybody else who ever gets this thing, that these are not 97 parts, because obviously drum brake shoes are not going to fit on this thing anymore, and you need to know what year it is at a minimum to be able to get pads and calipers or rotors or whatever if you need them at some point. But that's the update on the rear end. As I said, no difference. Fuel economy is good. Nothing changed. I don't have any drag, no excessive heating. The lug nuts are on order. They'll be here soon. And everything else is operating as well or better than I had hoped. So, if y'all have any questions, give me a shout in the comments. Otherwise, hope y'all have a good weekend. Take care.